10 or 11?
It's 10.
Yeah, that's what it is.
This would be a perfect thing for our.
Yeah, and
Speakers are really tinny.
yeah, but at least it has
Which just met tonight
this,
for
the
an hour and a half.
microphone, and it feels pretty solid.
And you have the mouse. I got
Of course,
a mouse
it's also on the state highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Everybody.
It came with two things: a DVD drive that's external.
External?
So
Oh, is
that-
that, is it?
He asked if I had talked to
In
you.
case you need Ethernet, in case you need to print to some
Oh, you're ready to
printer,
go. I haven't
you
put any
know,
printers.
flash.
Formal or informal as
Basically,
you want.
all I really bothered to install was Office 2007.
Well,
And then
okay.
the Acrobat Professional. I
Oh, yeah, I have no
use
need for
these,
that.
well, I use these, the one file that they give me. And I open up in Professional and I write on the, it's like as if writing on the
Probably
side. And
being
then
sold on
when I-
eBay. Someone probably broke in and selling them.
And then I print out.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Print out what page, and then I'll just go to
We need to do, or whoever. Because that's when you know everybody's going to be there. Did you eat before you came? I did. I ran home and cooked dinner in between.
You have a video card on there? Are you tuned into, yeah, work?
What was that?
Paste them in.
I know.
Close up.
Starting to feel. Takes a long time to learn. Yeah. Starting to feel, you know,
Let's see. How many we want to do? We might as well.
Lisa's on her way.
Okay. All right. Why don't we go ahead and start?
As was promised during the budget review sessions with the Committee of the Whole and the Finance Committee, we've made arrangements tonight to review the proposal for improving drainage over in the Sagamore subdivision. You received a copy of Kurt's PowerPoint presentation and pretty pictures, and he'll walk us through and bring us to the conclusion, which is here are a number of options, including staff's recommendation. Go.
Make pretty pictures.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So we're in the Sagamore neighborhood. Blackwood Street is the focus of this presentation, in particular the mailboxes along Blackwood Street. So that would be the two green dots here on our picture of the entire neighborhood. There is no focus for this discussion on any of the blue dots. If there's other issues out there, we're not aware of them right now. So if you know things, feel free to give us more information that you know. From this green dot, the way the direction of the arrow is, this is the way that picture was taken. This is one of the mailboxes, and the second mailbox is down here. This blue truck. The problem in this area is the shadows that come in the late evening hours, and it really doesn't give as much sun as the rest of the neighborhood. And this area is kind of flat, and as you'll see in a couple other slides, because there's a lot of flow. And all those three things combined create for some big ice sheets to form. And so we're trying to look at some solutions that will address the flows, working with the shadows, and how flat it is out there.
Was that looking west?
Yeah, this 76th Street is right here, actually. It's not in the photo.
East.
So this would
East.
be looking east.
Down the hill.
Sorry.
Oh, we're looking east.
North is up. In every picture, north is up. I try to keep everything oriented the same way.
Thank you.
Mail delivery's been an issue in this area when it snows. This is Janet. She's been doing this round for 10 years. And I got to spend some time with Janet on a very cold day in the middle of the storm a couple weeks ago. Her biggest issue from her perspective was the hill. And this bottom picture on the right. It looks pretty snowy, pretty icy, but she says the hill will get very icy and her truck will slide down the hill. In fact, in 2006, she delivered the mail in a little unconventional way. This truck slid all the way down the hill and into the mailbox.
Oh, wow.
Along the curb, the snow will build up, as you can see here in the bigger picture, and this creates a lot of ponding, a lot of puddles. She said this isn't a big issue to her as the road. And the ice. I also had the privilege to meet Mr. senior partner out there, Company Senior, and Rochelle Whitman to kind of discuss their history with this area. This is the first mailbox. This is what it looks like when it's sunny or shady. And this is what it looks like after 3 feet of snow. This is the second mailbox. Same. We got a little normal day and after 3 feet of snow. There's been a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions thrown out. So we'll talk about these solutions and talk about what the right solution is. We have a recommended solution, but we all want to hear your ideas and conversation as well to determine if our recommendation is the right recommendation. So this picture right here is the first mailbox is just to the right. The second mailbox is up the street to the left, so it's over here. So this is the first intersection you come to. What I've just tried to do, show the different ideas and show what they look like. So in this slide, this is basically, if we were to move the mailboxes, this is maybe what it would look like. A little mailbox right along the property line. They'll put the mailboxes over on the sunny side of the road and would help with access to the mail, but doesn't necessarily solve the ice flow problems that get out into the street. But that's one option. I estimated that to be maybe $2,000. The second option, and this is Rochelle had brought this idea up, was to put in a cross pan across the road. And she had an envisioned actually a cross pan here, and then the next intersection up a cross pan similar in nature. And this essentially, what it would do is take flows, redirect them to the other side of the street, to the sunny side of the street. Now, I'm not against that. I think it's a good idea. But one of the goals of the solution, whatever it may be here, is we have to make sure that whatever we implement doesn't cause problems elsewhere. And essentially, with any money we spend, we want to almost guarantee that's going to fix the problem. This is the existing drainage pattern. All the green here drains along what I would call the curb and gutter or concrete pan. So it would be these concrete areas here and here that are on each side of the road. And this whole green area drains to an inlet that's right here. And then the blue area drains down to an inlet that's right here. And ultimately, both of these inlets are part of the same system that drains to the drainage detention pond.
And where are the mailboxes?
Mailboxes are here.
Thanks.
Here. If we were to put in the cross pans, whether there's one here and also possibly one there, what you're doing is you're taking this flow and you're moving it to the other side of the street. And that was the goal. However, it may have some unintended consequences. This gutter can only handle so much flow. And in the wintertime, that may or may not be an issue. One of my concerns with moving flow to the other side is I'm thinking more in summer terms now. I'm thinking about that huge thunderstorm that comes through. You just have a lot of water flowing down the street. That warm water, it flows fast. And this couple weeks ago, this is the water just from how things are now. So imagine twice as much water in that location. These pictures here, and this is another small rainstorm we had about a month ago. These are both right in this area. So in a perfect environment where there's no cars parked, there's no trash cans in the way, there's no snow, maybe moving that flow to the other side, maybe it'll come around here and everything will be fine. But I have a fear that one, it may be too much flow, and water that gets moving fast tends to not want to turn, and we would maybe not make the curve and end up causing some issues in some people's yards. Or we get some blockages and it backs up into people's yards. And so those are some things that I fear if we went to the other side may happen, may or may not, probability.
But if that were to work, what would the cost be?
If that were to work, the cost, good question.
Or be selected, I mean.
I had said the cost on that was going to be $8,000 to $15,000. And that cost basically involves where you see the cross pan going across the street. We're going to remove some asphalt. We're going to remove a little bit of concrete. We'll put in new concrete.
And you're assuming that the water will, or if it were a working thing, you'd also assume the water would be able to make that turn in a fast day also.
I think it would do both. Some would still go down this
Yeah.
way, and some would make the turn. This would probably act more as an outlet when you had snow backed up. We can plot. So that last option was $8,000 to $15,000. Moving the mailboxes was $2,000. We can plow, and we did this in the last storm. We did throw some extra attention there, and we did plow the street. We are able to clean it up a little bit. You can't get super close just because the blades are big and it's a little tough in that tight area. Another challenge. So I mean, there's a lot of snow here by the mailbox before, and then this is kind of after we had the big plow truck go through. And we could spend more time with smaller trucks or manpower to do more detail work. It becomes very maintenance intensive at that point. Also, I think the big thing to keep in mind with all of these solutions is we have snow plows on site throughout a storm. But some of the problem is also post-storm. So we may not necessarily have the big plows around 2 days later on a 20-degree week where it's still building up. So it could maybe become an area where you have to call putting it back out that we don't have on site. Another issue with plowing and time was I think $500 to $1,500 was the cost. And that was just kind of an estimate of hours and materials we might throw down on that street over the season. Another issue with the plowing is the parking. It's tough to plow when we have the parking. And so if we were to rely on plowing as a complete solution, we'd have to look into some scenarios where maybe parking is not allowed after we have so much snow. And that's just to ensure that we can plow it. We can plow it in a manner that it's accessible and takes care of the problem. This is where we tried to plow and there was a vehicle in. The big problem with this situation is this actually becomes a dam and it just blocks all the water. If we were to no park it, we'd just be thinking about these areas here where the yellow arrows are. It could be any combination. It could be when it's 2 inches deeper, higher. It could be hours. It could be no parking at all in general. Last solution is to install inlets. And this solution, although the most expensive by a significant amount, is the solution that will just take the water and remove it altogether. Put it underground, take it into our existing inlet system, and not put it on the surface. If we did that, there would be an inlet by the first mailbox. There's, after some further discussion with Rochelle, there may be a necessity for a second inlet right here. But what we would essentially do is take this big area where all this water is draining and put it underground. We'd run a pipe from this yellow dot, which would be the inlet, down the street, and connect into the existing pipe system somewhere in here. We think this is the inlets are the safest and most reliable solution. The plowing, we can do it. You have to rely on no parking. You have to rely on solving most of the problem while they're on site and not having to constantly follow up on cold weeks or reoccurring storms. The cross pans, again, that's something we can do. We're going to move the problem to another side of the street. Could create other problems in the summer or even in the winter with drainage going into the houses at the end of the curb. Time was 500 to 1,500. Cross pans were 8,000 to 15,000. Inlets 45 to 75,000. Most of that is involved is the cost of pipe, the cost of pulling asphalt up, the cost of putting new asphalt down, manholes to kind of make some turns. And that's kind of the gist of where we're at. And I know I kind of sped through that. If I can go back to any slide you want, we can discuss it more.
Great, thanks. Questions?
Where the truck was sliding, where the mailman was sliding, I'm sorry, mail carrier was sliding?
Yeah. This-
Oh, it was right along there. So, and that's a fairly, now does she have that problem because she has to get to the mailboxes that are right there, or is it just in general driving on the street?
I think it's a mix. She said it happened in 2006, and that does get icy, and it doesn't sheet flow really well. So in a lot of snow, when it gets cold at night, that's going to ice up. You're going to slide.
Okay.
And then the second thing that compounds this is the water will build up here, and my understanding is that ice dam will slowly grow out,
Oh,
creating some large ice rinks in the shady areas. And my understanding of that is in this area here, not so much up here.
so we still have a significant problem even if we move the mailboxes out of that area?
But yes, we still, well, yes, we would.
Okay.
So I want to start by saying kudos. This is my favorite work session
Yes.
we've ever had. This is exactly what I hope we'd be seeing. So you're giving options, you're explaining it, you clearly listen to what the problem was instead of just dismissing it out front. And I can't tell you how happy I am with this work session thus far. So thank you so much. A model. Okay. Slides that make sense, slides that illustrate the problem. Thank you. Options. I love it. Okay. So plowing and salt won't do it either. The salt makes no, or salt substitute, or whatever you call it. Anyway, that doesn't really help either, right?
It'll help with these areas here.
Yeah.
It'll help in the middle of the road. It will not stop the ice rink, the ice dam situation.
The estimates that were come up with, particularly that last one, option 4, was that an estimate you came up with or RG came up with?
It was
No,
an estimate that I came up with, and I kind of worked on it, some at RG, and then I spent some more time last week just trying to itemize some things. The lower estimate, I was trying to look at a couple different technologies. You can trench, which is the last slide that I showed, the big going
I like that.
through the street like that. Some bigger pipe. If we trench, we put in some larger pipe, probably like 15-inch concrete pipe. That's what this is. Another idea we looked at is, hey, we really just want to bypass flow. We're not putting in a true storm sewer. So maybe we could do like 6 or 8-inch like plastic pipe, and we could maybe directionally drill it, and not necessarily tear up the street.
Huh.
That was coming in around 50,000. There's still some pros and cons I want to weigh, but that's why there was that range.
I see. And that estimate takes account of what appears to be a low balling in the construction industry because of the downturn or any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
You're
that price
saying-
right now, the high price was based off of, so I assumed this inlet here.
Uh-huh.
I didn't assume the second inlet. But after some further conversation with Rochelle out on site just tonight, we were out there, we may need a second inlet. But that was based off inlets and pipe and asphalt. And I took those things off of like Denver bids right now within the last few
Correct.
months. So actual cost, then I added 20% to that, just to create some safety.
And the extra for the second one might bump us up another 10K or something? Second inlet?
10 to 20.
Okay. And is this in the budget for this next year, or is this something extra that would be beyond what we've got in the budget?
It is a project we have planned with the streets program for next year.
And as a reminder, this is also, Sagamore subdivision is one of the areas that is going to be repaved in 2010. So coordinated, we wouldn't do it twice.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just wanted to say that this was an amazing presentation. I know it's just simple and everything, maybe that's the beauty of it. It just is so simple to understand, and I'm obviously not a construction person, but after seeing this, I totally get it.
Thank you.
You gave us the information we need.
Right. So thank you.
You put yourself in our shoes. I like that.
Yeah, me too.
Joe? Anything else? No, I'm sorry. Joe, anything for me?
Well, yeah, I guess, does anybody have an idea of the frequency of the problem normally?
It is,
I know it's weather.
yeah, it's weather. You probably got 2 or 3 big storms a year. I mean, let's just common sense it. We all agree on that. And then if it's cold after one of those storms, that's most likely when that happens.
I mean, there was a couple of years ago where the ice didn't go away anywhere for like a month.
Right, because it was cold. And I think that's where the problem lies, is those periods. So maybe once or twice a year. Does that sound accurate?
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions, and there seems to be, in my mind, 2 different issues. There's the problem with the street on the west side, which I don't think that the inlets, as I drove through there on the last snowstorm, I'm not sure that the at the inlets would solve that particular problem.
Correct. This is a Tier 3 street. So
Right.
it does, it will be plowed.
So the question is, right, so that Tier 3 plowing seems like that would be very effective. The other issue, it has to do specifically with the mailboxes and the ice that forms straight in front of them. And that, as I've fortunately or unfortunately, I have looked at this many times that over the years, it appears where your green arrows are going north, in between the houses, actually it'd be
Right there.
parallel to where they are
Street.
actually, through the backyards.
Oh, yeah, right here. Here.
It drains across, the sun is in the backyards of those houses. The snow melts and it runs down that way, and then it curves and then gets in the shade and then freezes on the sidewalk. And I'm not sure that the inlet would necessarily solve that problem, would be a
Right,
concern.
we may have to do maybe a double-sided type of inlet, where we can catch it on the backside too, if that is part of the problem.
It seems like that's a big problem, at least for the sidewalk.
Okay.
And then this is not an isolated phenomenon on this one particular street. If you drive through Sagamore, all of the streets that are in that direction, which, that you just flip it over and there's another division over on that side of the street where they also have the same issues. The advantage is that the mailboxes are not located in those areas. They're on the sunny side of the street, and that, for whatever reason, that's how they are on that side. And so that doesn't cause a problem there. but it doesn't solve the street issue. So would you anticipate putting inlets on that side of the street, on that side of the subdivision as well?
We could. I think I started here because this is what I heard. And I didn't
Right,
hear
sure.
about it, and maybe you're talking like in these areas? Is that?
It's actually across Sycamore, the
Next
other side of Sagamore.
Second half.
It's like a mirror image of that
Yes.
flopped over on the other side.
Okay.
And once
I
again,
think
it
you have
does.
a picture of that. One of your first pictures shows the entire. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, it shows the whole thing. One of the first pictures.
Although I do like the post-it notes.
I thought that was cool.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I love Flickr.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it has the same issue on that side because they all run the same direction. Fortunately, they're not very long in that way, but those streets that run east-west also have the same ice dam problem. And if we're going to tear the streets up in 2010, we don't want to solve one problem and then realize, well, we probably should do the others as well.
So which streets are the ones that are going to be repaved in 2010? All of them?
I think all of Sagamore, right?
All of Sagamore is scheduled to be resurfaced.
Any kind of crowning that would help it?
That's just
To
what it's going to
help to
Or
make things run better
regrading?
in the little drainage deals?
Well, the problem is that
I think
the
so.
drainage seems to work well, but what happens is that they're on the north side of that, it doesn't get sun because there's so many, the density of the houses there are so compacted, there's a lot of shade.
And then I think, I don't know, it's a little denser neighborhood, same amount of vehicles, so there might be more vehicle parking, creating more ice dams.
So that was one concern I had. I also have seen where if you go in from Sycamore and turn right into the northern section of that inlet that's right there, yeah, there's a lot of, unless it's plowed, it gets covered, and I've actually seen it partially flood in that area because it doesn't go through the inlet. So I'm thinking that maybe, no matter what we do, I think we're going to have to do some plowing to do significant improvement in that area. So
But it's a grander problem than that.
seems to be a bigger problem. I mean, if you drive through Rock Creek, every street that runs that direction, right, that runs east-west, gets ice damming.
Right.
It is a townwide issue. It is. However, the board wants to prioritize these things. we can improve.
So, I mean, if I could be convinced that doing the inlets would solve the problem, I'd say, write the check, let's do it, because we don't want to, have to do a whole bunch of personnel use in that area with every snowstorm because it's not dangerous, it's dangerous, it's not effective, and it's an ongoing maintenance issue. I just have a little bit of concern that we're going to put it in and then not completely solve the problem.
I think it is, there will still be some plowing required. And I say that probably townwide.
Sure.
This last storm, we had a lot of snow, but it was slow, it was spread out, and we had a chance to attack it with more pavement. But if we had the same snow in January, we probably would have had crews going around townwide working inlets and opening them up. So that is just a maintenance issue with snow in itself.
Sure.
The back of the yards, that's a good piece of information that I hadn't picked up on to do some things to, address that flow coming on. Maybe it's a chase drain.
Underneath.
Yeah.
I think that would be very helpful because it looks like it flows straight across the sidewalk and then freezes when it gets in the shade.
And maybe so the next steps on this is obviously part of our approved program, but we can come back in steps. We can say, hey, now we've heard, we have direction. We can come back with what the design solution is, and we can all make that decision together if we feel like it's right. And then when we bid it, we can come back, you'll see the costs, so you can make decisions then. So I think we have several steps to, just to make you aware through this conversation.
It sounds like one of the next steps is to investigate whether a solution can be added that addresses this other problem about the backyards and things.
For sure, that can be added, yeah.
Okay. I
And,
think it would help. Yeah, sorry.
well, and just, for discussion, I know this has been an ongoing problem, and especially it concerns me because the mailboxes are right there, and, that's one of, people can't say they're going to avoid it, they need to get their mail, so, but the concern I have is, again, there are a lot of those issues throughout Rock Creek. I know for just in front of our house, if I don't clear the drain down at the corner by my house, it backs up into our driveway. So at what level are we going to, I mean, this is it's a lot of money, up to $75,000. So I guess, in some ways, what precedents are we setting, especially if we're going to have to start developing, looking at this all over town? That's the only thing that concerns me with the more expensive option, but.
I guess the only other side of it is they don't even have a drain to clear, right?
Well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So we do have that. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
All throughout Rock Creek.
All right. So, do you have
Some guidance.
some guidance about where to go?
It sounds, I think I heard that everybody likes the inlet, or those who said something like the inlet, and we should proceed forward with that, keeping the backyard drainage in mind and create a solution around that as well. And we'll focus on the 2 areas with the green dots for now, and leave it at that.
Okay, sounds fair. So this ties into since we seem to have a little bit of extra time here, Tier 3 plowing. So where are we at with that?
As an experiment, and with Kurt's initiative, we took the contractual snow plowing company, ACC, during some of their lull times when they were still in town responding, but Tier 1 and 2 were in pretty decent condition. And Kurt oversaw them and got them into the neighborhoods. And we actually, not just Tier 3, but we actually had ACC plows on cul-de-sacs, all with the existing allowance of hours, no additional time, because they would have been on call, on duty here. They might have been idling somewhere waiting to go back, but by better managing the time that they were on duty in town, we got all of the streets attended to. As I indicated in the digest, we got well over a dozen calls of, thank you, it's the first time I've ever seen a plow on my street. No complaints, 0 complaints over the town's responsiveness on this particular storm. The only issue we had, but it wasn't a plowing issue, was the roundabout and some of the construction activity over there and the backups on Friday morning, all the way back up to 128, as far east as the airport, and I don't know how far west it went on 93. But it was a product that 93 was closed because of drifting, and the next available north-south was Indiana to McCaslin. So we got slammed in the morning, and it came at the same time that we had some issues at the interchange. So perfect storm, if you will. But in town, an exceptional response. Kurt's of the opinion that we can do that just through proper management of the existing hours. And I would also remind you that in our negotiations with the ACC this year, our contract currently reads that we get 1,150 hours of equipment time for our base price, whereas when we originally did the deal a year ago, we got 600 hours of equipment time. So we doubled the amount of time, and we're of the opinion now that by effectively managing those hours, we can provide it without any additional investment.
That's a good number. 0 is always good. Lisa.
And I think that's a really elegant and great solution. It kind of reminds me of the let's use prefab bathrooms, getting it within a budget.
$250,000 bathrooms
Yeah.
that became an $80,000 solution. Yes. And I give Kurt all the credit. It was his idea. He ran roughshod over them. He was actually in the cab with them at periods of time.
Did you get a cap?
Next one.
And it was a doozy,
Excellent
26 plus
solution.
inches.
Excellent solution.
And I got a lot of great comments on it as well, especially
So did I.
cul-de-sac people who are like, yes, we could make that, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I did get one complaint about how much was this costing the town, and since it's not costing any extra, even, I guess that's not a complaint yet, so.
And no new equipment.
Yeah, wonderful.
So the recommendation would be to just manage. I think I'm hearing that we won't explore that anymore for right now, except for just managing the current contract and see.
We're managing the current contract. That's our expectation for the balance of this entire winter season. While we do have the money in the budget for both equipment, overtime, and all of the others beginning in 2010, we have no intention of using it at all during this coming season, and we'll make another assessment at the end. But I've been very pleased with the initiatives that Kurt's brought to the table.
Right. So just then tangentially to that, we talked about the need to replace equipment. Is that can we tie it over to the next year to see how things go? before
Yes,
we-
there was, and again, remember that the budget included $140,000 for the purchase of 2 pieces of equipment. One was a replacement piece.
Right.
If we are not going to get into the in-house business of moving snow, we'll probably go back to a smaller scale vehicle. For discussion, roughly $50,000 for the smaller piece, $90,000 for the bigger piece. If we're not going to get into the business, we don't need to spend $50,000 on the replacement. We're back into the $25,000 or $30,000 for a pickup truck. And again, we'll make those decisions after the spring and after we've made an assessment on how this new
Sure, okay.
process has worked.
Okay, great.
But it was an excellent job. I mean, the plowing was fantastic.
Great idea. Hate that idea.
All right. Well, let's go on to item number 3 then.
At this juncture, the only item that we have on the agenda for the next meeting on the 23rd is the public hearing and the first consideration of the ordinances and resolutions pertaining to the Oxner annexation and the Remington Homes proposal. Whether or not those dates get moved because of the board's attendance is, I'm guessing, a decision that will be made later tonight. There's a possibility that we may have ready for consideration, certainly a discussion at the workshop session and possibly action later that night, would be the town's comments on the US 36 FEIS. If not that night, it'll be done the following meeting on December 14th. Depending on the workshop session and whether we have FEIS on there, we may also have the ballot initiatives. We've asked council to begin preparing the ballot initiatives, both library, home rule. And if the board's guidance is moving against home rule, I would expect we would be bringing a couple of other ballot initiatives, like moving an election, possibly publishing ordinances by title only, other things that we have the authority to do through referendum that we could also do either through home rule or independently. So we'll have you library language, we'll have you home rule language, and an alternative that says if no to home rule, then here are a couple of other things we think the board might want to consider for the April election.
On the 23rd or the 18th? 23rd?
At this juncture, I'm looking at a workshop session for the 23rd.
Okay.
The look-ahead anticipated that the ballot initiatives would be discussed at the only meeting that you have in December as a workshop. So it really depends on workshop balance.
Okay.
And I would also anticipate, based on some recent discussions and maybe your discussion tonight, you may want to have an executive session to talk about process or appointments or...
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else?
Not on the agenda.
Okay.
A couple of items from the digest, if you're ready for that.
Yeah.
First is the invitation for the Citizens Academy. I've had a couple that have been able to say that they anticipated being able to be here tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is the graduation ceremony. As I indicated, it'll run from 7 to 9. One of the activities or tasks that we asked each of the participants to do was to prepare a short presentation, not to exceed 10 minutes, on any item, issue, question, problem, concern that they had, proposal, that they would like to present to the town. So I'm expecting that there will be 8 different presentations tomorrow night to start, and with 8 participants, the first 80 minutes. After that, there will be a short graduation ceremony where I'm hoping that the mayor will be able to hand out diplomas, followed by refreshments and social. Certainly out of here by 9. Considering that their last 2 meetings, the one when we had public safety and we were visiting the Rocky Mountain Fire Department, went till 10:30, and last week's meeting went to 9:45 because of their questions and comments. We want to keep back at schedule and be done by 9 o'clock. But I would encourage and would be happy if board members could attend. And I think you will find their enthusiasm and their presentations to be incredibly insightful.
So how many hours total did they spend on that?
Well, we were scheduled for 2 hours for 2 hours each week, and as I said, the first couple meetings we were very good. We got out right at 9 o'clock. But the third session went until 10:30, 10:45. That was the night of the snowstorm. Week 4 went quite long.
6 weeks?
6 weeks.
6 weeks,
Yeah.
okay.
I would say about 15 hours.
Okay.
And I attributed a lot of that to the enthusiasm and great lines of questioning.
Do we have a certificate for them?
We will have certificates framed, ready for signature, and we'll make a...
Ask for tassels to move?
No tassels, no caps. I give you a brief update on where we are at on Boulder Valley Ice. We've had a couple of very productive meetings. I think we're still on line to be coming forward with both the final real estate agreement for the purchase of the property, as well as in tandem, a development agreement between the town and Boulder Valley Ice at your first meeting in January. I know Kurt's had a couple of meetings. I've got a meeting with them again this week as we're forming up exactly where the best 10 acres are going to be. I'd shared with you, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'd shared with the board regarding the Madsen property and the environmental assessment that the town had received. Have not received any feedback on it, but it gave the reports on the water quality adjacent to and immediately up and downstream of it. And the summary judgment of the engineering firm that did the work that said that there was insignificant, I believe was the phraseology of deviation between upstream and downstream, no contamination coming off the site. An update on our solar installations, making great progress on that. I would expect it will be coming forward by the end of the year on a power purchase agreement for the installation of the solar fields at both the water and wastewater treatment plants. We are proceeding with an application to the U.S. Department of Energy, pursuing some stimulus money to help implement our alternative energy production and energy conservation efforts. I would expect that we're going to be applying for up to about $2 million in those funds. That's all I had from the digest.
Great. Lisa?
Just wanted to remind about the Boulder Valley Ice when we put the agreement together. A couple of times I mentioned that part of our agreement, if we're leasing this land and purchasing this land, I thought it would be nice if we could get as part of the agreement that there's some community space in there.
There's a 600 square foot public meeting space included within there.
What is this room?
You're going to ask that. We've measured it. I don't recall. It's a little. This room's a little bit larger. I believe this is about 800. I want to say about 800 square feet. And I'll also remind you that there's also public space in the proposed expansion at Fire Station number 3 or 5, Rocky Mountain Fire facility that they're building, that they wanted to build over on Indiana and Colton. That also has public meeting space at our suggestion.
Speaking of that, so with the passage of the Rocky Mountain Fire Protection District ballot language, what's their timeline on building expansion?
They want to break ground yet this winter. We've had 2 meetings with their project architects and design team. Pretty much courtesy. We don't have any real particular issues. They've pushed the envelope just a little bit. Most recently, they've asked for some on-street parking on Indiana in front of the facility. And we've said, no, there's no parking allowed anywhere on Indiana. We're not going to start that precedent, regardless of how good yours is. You've got plenty of property, and if you need additional parking, put it behind the curb. I wish it was a full drive-through facility, all 4 bays. The 2 bays are currently drive-through. Their 2 new bays are going to be back-in, and I'm troubled a little bit because that back-in will generally, when they're backing in, they'll be blocking traffic on Indiana. But they didn't feel that they could make the necessary turn movements to make it a full-service 4-lane drive-through service bay. But that's the only other exception we had. I would expect that they'll be bringing plans before the board for final approval, if not by the end of the year, very early in January, and you're going to see construction commence very, very early. And they're using Oz Architects.
Okay. Anything else?
Good.
Okay.
It's a miracle.
Guess we have some time.
We do, and I wanted to take a picture if
Oh, right.
Ely and Eric got here.
Or when they do.
We're equipped for it whenever. So.
All right. Well, why
a break.
don't, for anybody who's interested, we will take a 15-minute break.
Sounds great.
Come back.
Okay.
guess we should start. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees for November 9th, 2009. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Sure. Mayor Andrew Muffle,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lisa Skumatz,
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli,
Here.
Dana D'Souza,
Here.
Elia Gregoris,
Here.
Eric Rosenfeld, Deborah Williams,
Here.
Town Manager Scott Randall,
Here.
Town Attorney Jennifer Perry,
Here.
Town Clerk Lois Hardy here.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Trustee Skumatz.
I have a couple of changes. One is, I would like to move items C and D from the consent agenda onto the regular agenda for discussion.
Okay.
And I'd also like to do something, I don't mean to jump ahead of something, but we're missing somebody, and I'd like to add to the agenda a discussion of a possible vacancy.
Sure. I was going to do that during 4, but that would make sense. All right. I hear 2 changes. Any other changes to tonight's agenda?
Covered by.
C and D to follow the consent agenda. C and D.
7C, 7D.
Yeah. All right. If there's no other changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those changes. Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Gregoris. Discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Trustee Sorelli?
About the only thing I could report is that we had a Transportation Safety Committee meeting earlier today. Many issues were discussed, and
Go ahead, you can.
Trustee Gregoris will be happy to fill you in on all of it.
All right, nice.
Passing the buck.
Yes. When you get to go first, you get to pass.
Trustee Skumatz. Anything else? I'm sorry. No, Trustee Skumatz.
The only things I can remember are that I attended the ProStack meeting the other night where they were discussing the board feedback on the parks, and it was, I think, a productive discussion, and I appreciated them allowing me to be an interloper for a few minutes. I also had a coffee buzz, and the ProStack was a pretty, the parks and all that was a pretty big part of discussion and people's comments. And the third is that I chaired a CML Energy and Sustainability Committee meeting earlier today, and we had some interesting presentations, but the only action that we ultimately took was in support of potential legislation allowing solar gardens and that sort of thing, and that's something that also passed through the policy committee for CML, so I suspect we'll see something supporting that on CML's agenda this year, which is great because it opens up the opportunity for solar not just on your roof, should your roof be aligned badly or you're in a multifamily building and there's no way for you to put solar on your roof, that sort of thing. It allows you to purchase solar sort of in a better location, and but that's your solar sort of thing. So.
Okay, great, thanks. I attended a U.S. 36 Mayors and Commissioners meeting regarding the U.S. 36 FEIS Final Environmental Impact Statement, which is coming forward. There will be public comment at Louisville Library for Boulder County, and I don't remember the date actually off the top of my head, so we should probably put that online, and I should remind myself of that. And early in the evening, the manager said that we'd be talking about that during the work session, and that would be appropriate as well.
I expect that you'll have comments, staff's recommendations on potential town comments on the FEIS at your next meeting, at a workshop for action either later that evening or at the following meeting.
Okay, very good, thanks. And then the bulk of the meeting had to do with RTD's lack of funds to build the rail, and U.S. Superior doesn't have a rail line, so it doesn't really pertain to us, but RTD is suggesting going to ballot in 2010 to raise additional sales tax to extend the rail lines, but I don't think they've decided on that. So that's all I had. Trustee D'Souza.
I was at the Transportation Safety Committee meeting earlier, and we went over quite a few different things. One was the McCaslin, so the southbound right turn on McCaslin exiting off of the freeway, and some ideas to come up with what we want to do with that. And although as to date, I guess there hasn't been any major accidents, the concern is over the confusion that's there. And so we're going to try and two things, signage, but also stopping the right turn heading southbound from crossing over all the lanes. There's a tiny sign there now, but most people that we've talked to don't either know about it or follow it. And so you'd have to just keep going right, and then also to have a stop sign there so that there would be, I guess, an interval in between the traffic that's coming from the Louisville side, crossing over, and then the traffic from the Superior side, or that's off of the 36. That was one of the things we talked about. The other thing was about the bike lanes on every street. We had a question about that. When this was during the discussion, I think, with the electric vehicles, and when we were talking about having bike lanes on every street, we kind of were wondering exactly if that was meant to be all the main streets, not every street in town. All the main ones, right? The ones that don't have homes on them. Is that?
Because that didn't make any sense to have bike lanes with cul-de-sacs and in front of homes and all that, so.
And there are on most of them, but
I think that's
it would
what
be nice to have it green or something so you see it as separate from just a shoulder. But
Okay.
So we have McCaslin, Rockbury Parkway, Colton, and Indiana. Are there any other streets that have bike lanes besides those major
88.
four?
I think
88
but there's that
has
section
some.
that doesn't have the sidewalk, and so it crosses over. So that was a question we had, just
76 should have it if it's not there.
76.
76, Sycamore should.
Oh, that's true.
No, we
Okay.
didn't think about that.
Let's write that one down. 76.
We just want to make sure that we're not talking about all the streets.
Yeah, that we assumed that's what it was.
Okay, right.
Yeah. Also, the roundabout, now that it is able to drive through now, but installed, as the town manager informed us, it has been installed with the conduits for the flashing lights, but as far as putting the flashing lights in, we thought we'd like to wait and see how it works as far as the crossing, since it is already supposed to be safer with the roundabout there and all of that. So unless anyone else on the board had any big concerns about not putting in the flashing lights right now, we thought we would wait on that and see how it goes.
I'll trust your judgment, but I hope we can pull the trigger fast if we need to, because I've seen many people almost hit people on the other roundabout.
On the other
without
end.
flashing lights.
Well, the good thing is that this one is going to be just one lane that you cross. Well, all that. But anyway, that was something that we were waiting on. I don't think is there anything else of note?
Two other.
Mr. Rendell?
Two other important points.
The committee discussed the need for additional pedestrian crossings in and near the Superior
Right.
Marketplace and had given staff guidance to pursue striping of pedestrian crosswalks. 76th, Sycamore, and removing what appears to be a trail that has just developed over time from the area at 2nd, 3rd, and Maple, to remove that because it's not a conducive place for pedestrian crossings. And then the last one had to do with the westbound on-ramp to US 36. And the suggestion, recommendation was to go to a perpetual 24/7 left turn on green arrow only. You know that we made those changes recently for AM and PM peaks, and it's worked effectively. But we've had a number of accidents outside of that period of time, and our accident history shows that the vast majority of accidents at that intersection have happened evenings and weekends. So it was the committee's recommendation, since the trial has worked from 7 to 9 and 4 to 6, that we should just make it permanent and extend the period of time allocated to that left turn if necessary.
And just to be clear, there's a crossing on Marshall Road in between I think it's around 2nd Street and over to the shopping center, which has a curb cut. I think there's a pedestrian ramp and a curb cut out with a bollard in it that's anticipated to be removed. Is
Yes.
that- yeah.
We want people to either cross Marshall at McCaslin or at 4th.
Yeah.
Both signalized intersections. They shouldn't be crossing mid-block. Right.
And I had a issue that I wanted to bring up, and I think that I'm not sure if it's going to be brought up during the discussion of, what was it, D and C and D. And this might be something that Trustee Williams brings up as well, is that the timing for the discussion on November 23rd of the Oshton property, since there's going to be just barely a quorum here. That would be nice if that could be set at a time when there are more people. And also, I think because it's a holiday week, it would be nice to have that at a time when there are more people who could probably be attending. I expect there'll be quite a few people out of town who might be interested in that. So I was hoping that could be moved. And also, in the future, it would be nice if items that have large developments are not put on the consent agenda. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but it seems to me that if there's something that is really significant, like a large development in town, that it really should be its own agenda item and not put in a consent agenda. That would just
I agree.
be my
I wrote an
recommendation.
email to that effect as well.
And perhaps the town, I see the town attorney leading towards the mic.
If I could just suggest that, what makes this funny is you all have a public hearing set on these items, but this is preliminary approval. Because this isn't the public hearing, there really can't be much discussion of these items anyway. The reason they're put on the consent agenda. The preliminary approval is the first step, then there'll be a public hearing, and at that point, you'll take testimony and have an opportunity to discuss them. So it's a little awkward, because these two items have to be done by ordinance, but because we have preliminary approval, we have to get them on there at some point. And so we put them on for preliminary approval on the consent agenda, hoping that no one will discuss them, because this is not the opportunity to discuss them.
Okay, so, and can I just clarify then that we should not discuss them at this point?
Exactly.
And what does this do, though, as far as setting up the timing and everything for it? As far as the November 23rd discussion and the public hearing discussion?
That's another problem. You all set the public hearing on November 23rd. By statute, the hearing has to occur between 30 and 60 days of the date that you adopted the resolution setting the hearing. It's my understanding from the town clerk you adopted the resolution setting the hearing on October 12th. November 23rd is within that time frame, but your next meeting, which is December 14th, is not within that time frame. So we basically would have to start over if we want to set a new public hearing. The other option is to hold part of the public hearing on the 23rd and then continue it to a later date. If that happened, the problem is that the annexation statutes are a little strange. They are one of the only statutes that require you to hold at least 1 hour of testimony prior to continuing a hearing. Now, that may not be a problem in this case, because there may be enough public testimony to get that hour in on the 23rd, but you have to get at least an hour in on the 23rd in order to continue it. At that point, you can continue it to any date, because once you've opened the public hearing, you're within the time frame. So that's okay. If you had an hour's worth of public hearing on the 23rd, you could continue the hearing to your next meeting on the 14th and be fine.
So what happens if you have a 55 minutes of...
I know, it's sort of ridiculous, because it's a
nice
forced
music.
filibuster. You have to have staff get up and talk about the Broncos or something. I mean, it seems sort of silly. That's what the statute says. I don't think there are any annexation police out there making sure that it wasn't 59 and a half minutes instead of 60. I think the point is that you can't just keep continuing the hearing without taking any testimony.
So how can we ensure that we have at least 60 minutes? I guess that's the question on the 23rd, since some of us are not going to be here.
Staff presentation.
Yeah, I
We
don't
can-
have any concern about filling 60
Fill in
minutes.
60 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And then can you tell me what would happen if we do not approve this preliminary ordinance?
We would set the preliminary approval for the night of the public hearing. That would just back everything up. So you can have the preliminary approval on the night of the hearing and do the first approval on that night, if that's what you would rather do. We have a complicated timeline on how to get this done, and so all that does is it monkeys around with the timeline a little, but it's not fatal.
It doesn't push the timeline back. We
It
just
will
have to-
push the timeline back, yes. Because you still then have to have a second reading.
But we still have, we still
Unless
have
you
to
want
have
it,
the,
I should take that back. As a statutory town, you only have to have one reading of an ordinance. You all have expressed a desire to have 2 readings. You don't have to have 2 readings. So legally, you can have the single reading, the only reading, occur on the night of the 23rd, or whatever date it's continued until, if that's what you would rather. But then you'll be doing away with your custom of having a preliminary approval first.
right. Okay.
I had a question.
Francisco Metz.
A related question. So, let's say that we have a meeting on the 23rd and an hour's worth of testimony happens. How did those people or their comments get heard by the people who aren't there that night but are there the next night? Do they have to repeat their hours worth of stuff, or how do they?
No.
How do they feel like they get input? We watch the tape, or we
Yes,
can't watch the tape, or
When
it's all
any
done.
board member that would like to participate, who did not participate in the first hearing, who would like to participate in the second hearing, or the continued hearing, excuse me, would have to state on the record that they'd watched the tape or listen, watched it online or listened to the tape. It doesn't have to be, visual, but it does. You do at least have to listen to all the testimony. So people can be assured that their comments will be heard and will be taken in as part of the record.
whichever night they show up.
Exactly.
Trustee D'Souza.
And since we're on this line, if I can ask one more question regarding public comment at this time then, since we've pulled this on the agenda, we've pulled this off the consent agenda, are we allowed to have public comment on this? How does that happen?
Obviously, public can say what they want in public comment,
Right.
but it can't be considered by you as the board tonight because it's
Okay.
not part of the public hearing.
Okay. So I didn't have any more questions on that. And I did want to say, and I'm guessing that our town manager might bring this up, but that in the recent snow removal, that we had great comments from especially people that lived in cul-de-sacs about how well that was done. And so I just wanted to say thank you to our Public Works manager for seeing that it was done without any additional cost. And so we greatly appreciate that. It did make it much easier to get around town. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
Trustee Gurris.
Oh, I've just received several comments about the scoreboard in Williams Field, all positive. They're very grateful, especially from the Mustang organization. So thank you for that.
And so a shout out to the Mustangs about the 11-year-olds winning their
Oh, that's
championship
the other
game.
thing.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So that was awesome.
We attended that game. It came down to 0.8 of 1 second. The Louisville Pirates were on the 2-yard line, and they did not cross the. Didn't score a touchdown, and they won 12-6. It was an amazing ending to a great game.
Oh, great. Congratulations to them. Trustee Williams.
I have nothing to report, but I have a couple things I wanted to address. The Home Rule Advisory Committee, have they met at all?
We don't have one. No, the board chose not to make an appointment and create the committee.
We have a collection of people
We
that
have a collection of people, so they have not met.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, where does that stand then?
I think nowhere unless I keep hoping that somebody will step up to the plate and organize the meeting, but I haven't heard anyway.
So we
Not
left
from the
it
town.
where they were going to meet, is that correct?
No.
We were
did
not
not.
involved in
Okay.
running it.
So
I-
basically, we decided on,
It's up to them.
it's up to them?
Uh-huh.
So no one has come forward then,
I have
to meet?
yeah. Look,
Okay.
as far as I'm aware.
All right. Well, good to know.
Anything else? Trustee Rosenfeld?
Yeah, I have an announcement I need to make. I recently accepted a new position that I'm very excited about. Unfortunately, it means I'll be working out of an office down in Centennial, which is a pretty far drive from here. So that commute's not something I'm looking forward to. In long term, my wife and I have decided that we're going to relocate to South Denver. And given these changes in my life, I feel it's appropriate that I step down from the board instead of waiting for my term to expire. This is a bittersweet moment for me. I'm really excited about the work that we've all done here and my involvement in the town. I've been volunteering, I guess, almost 5 years now, or a little over, and I've been here for 8. And I started my family here, and it's been a special place for me. So I'm sad to leave at the same time. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, I guess, my career and my family do come first. And so I think this is a change that I have to make for myself, and my wife agrees. So effective immediately, I'm stepping down from the Board of Trustees from the town of Superior. And I'd like to thank everyone who supported me through the years, and the current and previous board members as well. So,
After this meeting.
nope, right now.
It's the end of the meeting.
I thought about it. I think given my intention to move, I really don't feel it's appropriate that I continue to vote on anything. I think, my credibility, my interest wouldn't be well served that way. So, unfortunately, you guys have some tough votes. I would love to stay because I do, have expressed opinions, and I believe the town is moving in a great direction. But I think it's more appropriate for me to step down rather than cast votes, knowing that in 2 or 3 months I probably won't be living here anymore.
So you and I had a conversation on the phone. I think it's okay to say that, and I appreciated all the hard work that you had done for the town, and it's been great working with you. And I'm sorry that to see you move. There's so many things that you've added to the town and to the board, but completely agree with the family and career coming first. So totally get that one. You'll be missed. We're glad to have you here, and good luck on your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Can I ask you a quick question here?
Yes.
Since you're no longer trustee, I can ask.
Is it now official?
Address you as Eric.
Should I go sit over there?
Would you ever consider running for the city council down in the town in Centennial? Based on your experience here?
I won't be living down in Centennial.
Oh,
I'm
you won't,
looking
okay.
for South Denver.
Okay.
And for now, I'm going to put the politics on the shelf and focus on other things. First job, then family, and then I'm actually very interested in doing some more volunteer work outside of government. So,
Well, good luck in all your endeavors down there.
thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to work with you on the board and getting to know you and your family. And we haven't always agreed, but I've always appreciated that you brought in a honest and a well thought out perspective. And so I'm going to miss having you on the board. So thank you for your service.
So I'm going to miss you, partly because you can always explain things, or we can explain things better. But the
My
other,
notes.
I really appreciate always your repeated attention to the business side of things and all that, and I thought that was a really important mantra. So thanks.
Thank you.
I'll throw in my 2 cents too, having nurtured you on the planning
That's
commission.
right. Absolutely, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that you helped me, showed me the ropes when I first
No,
joined.
I, in both capacities, I enjoyed working with you, considered your opinions very valuable, and you will be missed on this board. And I can just say best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you.
And these cookies are all mine.
Well, I definitely hate to see you go because I find that your input is very valuable and it helps me tremendously as I go along. So we got to make sure we get somebody as good or better.
Yeah, I mean, if the board's going to consider appointments, and I encourage anybody watching to, or here today, to consider joining the board. It's it's had its highs and its lows, but ultimately, I believe strongly in giving back to the community, and this has been very rewarding for me.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Photo now.
Are you seriously going to leave, or are you going to hang around to the end of the meeting?
No, I got to go put my kids to bed.
Quick photo.
2 minutes?
Can you bear with us? We
Mr.
don't
Magley?
actually have a phone.
Coming from the back room.
Okay.
Okay.
Take a mini break?
Take a before and after picture.
Real fast one. What time?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
Staying here or going back?
You can just sort of shot me out.
Do it right
Or
there.
in. I'll take a picture.
Let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just do.
Do the flags.
I'm not sitting with
You all squeeze in?
Yeah, I think I got you all.
Is the chair back in it?
Well, you're in the room. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. Just be sure. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Showing the photo taken.
So good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Lots of books on tapes in the meantime.
Yeah. Thanks. I will. Thanks.
With that, it's probably an opportune time. I hate to make the complete segue here, but we're now missing a board of trustee that we need to figure out what to do. And maybe the attorney could go over the process. I believe I looked at this recently, but our town manager, whoever would like to, or perhaps
Sure.
Phyllis, anybody.
I'd be happy to. It's, well, it's not crystal clear, as you would expect. The board, according to your own code, has the, quote, power to fill a vacancy by appointment. By statute, you are required to fill a vacancy within 60 days of the vacancy occurring. If that doesn't occur, you are required to order an election to fill that vacancy. So those are what the statutes and the code says. The code has no time limit on it, but the statutes do. So 60 days from today's date of the effective date.
So we'd have, so just to remind people, so we'd have to order an election if we were going that route by middle of January, if I have my dates sort of correct?
Correct. Or make an appointment. You
Or
don't
make
have
an
to have an
appointment,
election.
right. So, but if we were going to go that route, we'd have to do it by January, and we have an election in April.
Exactly, and that term would only be until April.
Right. So I guess I would generally be in favor
That would not make any sense.
that we don't have a special election and that we do
Now-
an appointment.
With that being said, there's no sort of involuntary indentured servitude here. And so I have had clients who they are faced with this dilemma because they don't have anyone to appoint because no one steps forward. If that occurs, there are no vacancy appointment police out there. There's nothing is going to happen. It will not invalidate everything that you do. So if you don't have someone step up that is willing to take the appointment that the board is willing to appoint, it will remain a vacancy until the next election. And there's nothing, like I said, nothing is voided. It doesn't have any effect on what you do. So, I mean, I have some cities and towns that can barely get a full board at any point. So,
And also just for calendar purposes, we have a meeting on the 23rd and the 14th? I don't
14th.
remember.
November 23rd, December 14th,
And then the next one would be in the new year, so.
January 14th, which would technically be beyond the 60 days from tonight.
but again,
Right.
if it doesn't happen in 60 days, it
The
does
state
not
police
affect
aren't
the
gonna come
validity.
down and-
Yes,
yeah.
it does not affect the validity of anything that you do.
Well, so my recommendation, once again, would be to appoint somebody. My other recommendation would be to publish this, because there's probably more people that would be interested that clearly are not aware of this. I'd like to say that everybody in the town of Superior is watching us tonight, but that's probably not realistic.
Especially tonight.
Yes, exactly. Game on Broncos, town of board. So I would recommend publishing that through all of our communication means, and would suggest that we have applicants put their application forward and then probably interview. I would think it would make sense. So, Trustee
So what's the
Smollett.
process? Oh, sorry.
Thanks. So I think, just as the precedent from when Trustee D'Souza and I were appointed, we had to submit some kind of application, maybe sort of like a resume or something, and then appear before the board to answer some questions that the board asked. And how would our timing on that work? We could ask for those sort of submittals of interest any time. I mean, starting now, basically. But would we, if we interviewed on the 24th or 3rd, there wouldn't be a lot of people there. We could interview on the 14th, but then how would we decide? So I don't know. We could interview on the
Probably-
14th and have
decide
people
on the
listen to it,
Right.
and then appoint on the 14th.
That's what I would recommend, honestly, doing, is that as soon as we would have applications, I fully realize that there's a lot of people that are out of town for Thanksgiving week, but, we could do some of the, if there were any applications by that time, then to do those interviews then, and do some more interviews before the meeting on the 14th, and then do that appointment on the 14th. I think it makes sense. So I'm not sure how the board feels about it.
Last time we did planning commission, we actually recorded the interviews for
Uh-huh.
benefit of the people that weren't able to be at the interviews too.
Sure, that's a great idea.
That's fine.
So I don't know how the board feels about that. Trustees comments?
So do we want to make the applications due by the 23rd and have all the applications in by then and do those interviews? Or do you want to have the applications, some on the 23rd, some on the
I'd like to
23rd?
have, I'd like to give as many people that would like to apply as much time as possible, and I probably would call it I guess we could have a recommendation for the 23rd, but if it comes in on the 24th, I'd say that we should probably accept that as well. So as much time as possible and as many people that we'd like to interview. I don't see any particular downside to it, at least.
Recognizing that there's 3 weeks between your November 23rd and your December 14th meeting, would the board be willing, and I'll just say, have a cutoff date of December 1st of expressions of interest? Our December newsletter will already have been released so that we will have all of our media forum, at least town-generated media, opportunities to get the message out, and then conduct a special workshop session, one of those off Monday nights in early December,
I think that would be
so
great.
that you could
Yeah.
make your
I think
formal
that would be
decision on the
better.
14th?
And then all the
That's a good
interviews would
idea.
happen at once then?
Yeah,
That would be better.
like on the 7th, maybe?
And when does the newsletter come out?
It's always received by the first day of the month. So, and in fact, this was going to be our trial, that we were going to distribute the newsletter both hard copy and electronically.
So then they
For
should do
December.
that for the 1st.
So all
So,
that,
so no one would, I mean,
Monday
if
the 7th.
they would, a deadline of December 1st wouldn't be a good idea. They could.
Pick a day.
newsletters would-
I'm
Yeah,
just,
so
I'm
like the 6th.
I'm giving a hypothetical about the prospect.
How about the Friday before the Monday?
That's fine.
Because then they can be scheduled and all that.
well, that wouldn't give us any time to see anything you submitted before we,
If it's due Friday, we get it Monday morning or over the weekend.
I think December the 1st sounds fine, and if we have the meeting December the 7th, then we have some time to look at the,
But then they don't, sorry, but if it's December 1st, they only get the newsletter December 1st.
Now, the newsletter's never received later than the 1st. It's always delivered during the month of November.
You get it
So
the
the only thing that might
31st, then you have to do it by the 1st. So, yeah.
Well, a few days after. We'd call it a few days after whenever the
I think
newsletter
that would
is.
be good.
So
And is this a mail-in,
both.
or is this the electronic as well?
No,
this is
Anything.
just,
Both, right?
Which, the newsletter?
Uniform.
The newsletter.
The December newsletter will be both electronic and hard copy.
And the submittals can be electronic or paper. Right.
You need to tell me what it is you want. Do you
Probably
want a
should,
questionnaire? Do you want a resume? Do you want a...
probably something similar to what we do for the commission. So, an application and a resume if they'd like to add to that.
I think a larger video type application.
PowerPoint presentation.
Maybe that would work. Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously we can use our message board and CAC and Channel 8, whatever. Yeah. All right.
And really with the understanding that this seat is only until the end of March, and then, right?
Right,
Essentially.
and that we'll be looking for
Basically 3 months,
someone
basically.
Mm-hmm.
hopefully up on the latest going on in town and
Right.
has some understanding of how things work.
I agree. Anything else on this? Mr. Randall, I think you're up.
2 items. Some of the thunder stole, but reminder to everybody that the Citizens Academy graduation is tomorrow in this room from 7 to 9. Encourage, invite, and implore the board, as many board members as possible, to attend. And then to talk about the snow plowing. I just wanted to give kudos to particularly Kurt, our Public Works Director, for having prodded the third-party vendor, ACC, and utilizing the increased hours that we've received this year to provide a level of residential street snow plowing that the town has never seen before. We received well over a dozen phone calls thanking us, thanking the town for, quote-unquote, "I've never seen a snow plow on my street before. Thank you for helping me get out." It's a practice we hope to continue on large storms, not through our own staff, not through any additional cost, but better management of the almost 1,200 hours that we've already contracted for with our third-party vendor. And I appreciated the very positive comments that we've received just here tonight, and I know that just reinstills the strength of staff to continue to perform. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Carberry?
I don't have anything, thanks.
Harden?
I don't have anything.
All right, thank you very much. With that, let's go on to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items. Yeah, just for procedurally, name and address, if you wouldn't mind, at the mic. So.
Lawless 444 Southern Avenue. So please educate me as to what's going to happen about 7C and 7D. The public is not allowed to comment tonight then?
Public can make any comment that they would like.
At the time.
For
that it's
legal
discussed.
reasons, and the attorney might correct me, but, if you consider all these things in a vacuum, the board is making a decision clearly only on the things that happens during the public hearing, which is not tonight. That would be at the 23rd and probably, I assume, extended then to the 14th.
That's
So
they also don't make C and D comments now because it's.
They can, citizens can make any comments that you want, but we're like, no, I can't hear you, if you know what I mean, in terms of,
That's exactly
I'm just
how I would
saying,
say it.
yeah. I believe that would be the legal terminology, isn't it?
No.
I mean, technically, we're not supposed to consider that as part of the rendering of an opinion during the public hearing, if you get my drift.
So 7C and 7D cannot be commented on it tonight when you discuss it?
Yes, you can,
But not now.
during 7C and 7D.
At the time when
At the
7.
time that it comes up, public comment will
Correct.
be able to comment tonight.
Yes, tonight.
Just want to make sure I understand.
Yep.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I'm Bruce McDonald, 1171 East Riverbend Street in Superior. And I think, Phyllis, do they have the handout that I made for the board? I'm here to talk about a traffic problem that's gotten worse and worse as the city has grown. And that is at the location by Panda Express where Marshall Road narrows to one lane right before you make the curve to go to Costco. And it's becoming a real problem there because of the increase in traffic and because the public doesn't seem to understand that the left lane must merge into the right lane and that the right lane has the right-of-way at that location. These are the pictures on the back page show the signs that indicate that the left lane is to merge into the right lane. And so what I would like the board to consider is addressing this issue. I think it can be done relatively inexpensively. And I make 3 recommendations. I'm no traffic engineer, but if we were to take down one of those signs that you currently see and say left lane ends, merge right, that would help. I also think if we made some arrows on the pavement that showed the merger to the right. And then the other thing that I would recommend is continuing the lines on the street so that they sort of cut off the left lane. Currently, they just sort of end. And so it's like people don't know what to do, or it's not clear that the right lane has the go-ahead. This has been made more significant by the fact that that light is there and seems to be timed more frequently, probably. And so with the traffic, you're setting up a race where right before this merger occurs, you put 2 cars right next to each other, or 4 or 6, and then you turn the light green, and all of them are supposed to go through, and in 30 yards, they're supposed to merge effectively. So I would greatly appreciate if the board would consider taking some action there. I think it could be done relatively inexpensively, and it would really help make that an area that's not as contentious.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a very constructive comment. It's always nice to have that and actually have some information here. I think that's very helpful. I have two comments. One is that we have a traffic and safety committee that looks at issues like this, and I guess I would. They're here tonight, and I suggest that they will look into that.
Yeah.
The other thing is that this is State Highway 173, or I don't remember that. So technically, this is a CDOT road that the state has to approve changes on. But we have connections with CDOT. I'm sure that they would be interested in hearing what our thoughts are. So it's not quite as quick as you might anticipate going through the other levels of government, but I think it's an excellent idea, and I'm sure that we'll bring it up in
I know what
TSC.
you're talking about.
There won't be an environmental impact statement.
Well, yeah, I don't think so. You just never know, though. I don't think there's any endangered species out there on the highway. So,
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
thank you very
Thanks for
much.
bringing this to our attention.
Additional public comment?
Hi, my name is Nicholas Kokoris. I live at 1106 Rogan Way, Superior. I'm just starting my Eagle project, working on it as an Eagle Scout, and I'm collecting books for inner city underprivileged and abused kids in Los Angeles. And so I was just wondering if I could have the town support on this and possibly having a donation box here in City Hall. I don't know, just have the support of the council. I'm not sure.
Collecting gloves, did you say?
Books.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. No, that's right.
I'm
I'm old, I don't hear well.
Thank you very much for coming forward. I love the Scouts and I love the Eagle Scouts project, and I think that's very admirable, and congratulations on working on that project. I suspect that we can work something out with town staff. Probably the best way to do that would be to come to Town Hall, would you say, Mr. Manager?
Either a visit or a phone call, and we can arrange for both the drop box and some promotion that it's available for what duration, much like we do for the Mustang football coat drive.
Coat drive.
Is that something that could go in the newsletter that goes out just a little, or is that not?
Depending on the timing, it's also something for the message board.
Oh, the message board would be, that's a good idea.
Trustee D'Souza.
So, do you already have any signs or anything that made up, or are you planning on making up signs?
I'm
for
just
that?
starting. I mean, I've been going around to schools and libraries. I'm just still in the planning phase, basically.
Okay.
Mary Hauserman actually gave the green light for Superior Elementary to be a drop box, so at least that's, and really they're looking for children from kindergarten age up to 8th grade, middle school.
Okay.
Great.
So, I actually had a little bit of an insider hint on that today.
I was wondering what you're doing, like doing some journal reading? Or?
During the thing. So I think that's a really great project to work on, and good luck with that. That's really an excellent project.
Great. Thank you very much.
These are his first books, actually.
His first book. There we
Hopefully
go.
many more to collect. So.
I wondered about gloves in L.A.
Very good. Additional public comment. Welcome, George.
Good evening. George Kuffman, 109 South 4th. I have a question, and maybe you can answer, the town manager can answer it, whatever. Original Town Recycling Center closing. Who made this decision? Did the staff make this decision, or did the board make this decision?
Trustee Skumatz.
It did come before the recycling committee, and the recycling committee determined that since there's curbside recycling for residents in Original Town, curbside recycling for residents in Rock Creek, and because there are drop boxes elsewhere, that it was thought that it was extraneous. We were getting a lot of complaints about the lack of cleanliness of it and the expense, and so since curbside exists, it was determined that we'd phase it out and gave some notice.
Well, let me tell you something. I live here. I use it all the time. And it seems like it's full all the time, and it's not emptied enough is what the problem is why we're having a mess around it. The neighbors next door own just a little piece of property from here to there that seems like it has a lot of junk on it, but it's had it on there for a long time, and that's a private lot to the east of them. You've taken away our roll-offs. We used to have roll-offs here in town to dump our leaves in. All you want is to put them in our good cars, haul them all the way over to your place over there. We don't go that route. We don't want that route. We want what we had before. We had roll-offs in case of emergency like it was this weekend. that you could put your stuff in it and they'd haul it off for you. You've taken away our fire protection. We used to have a fire wagon in town. You're taking everything that we got away, what we use. And I'm talking about Sagamore uses it, I use it, people in the town, and it's full, and it's not emptied enough. They're not using the recycling in their little can that you give us. They have more than that, so they need a place to dump it. So would you take this in consideration about leaving there, period? We have town staff people, we have employees that can go by and look occasionally at it. They did this in the city of Louisville. They do it every other place. We have the employees. You don't have to do it from behind here. So please think about it, will you please?
The Louisville one is also phased out. It's closing on January 1st, I think, also. So Louisville's not going to have that service anymore either.
Do we
And
have to follow Louisville's recommendations? Can't we have our own little town and do our own little thing?
We do have our own
We don't
little-
need to do what Boulder does. We don't need to do what Louisville does.
We do have our
It
own...
irritates me, Lisa.
I know. We do have our own little town, and we did make that recommendation. But you brought up Louisville as an example. I was just saying that Louisville is actually also closing it, so it's not a service that Louisville
They
will be
did
having
when they had it
into
operating,
the
okay?
future.
Their recreation department took care of it, okay, and they still take it. We have Coke Cal go down here and pick up stuff for us now. So what, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's right to do this to us all the time. Just take. We do live here, we do pay taxes just like you do. And I think that people appreciate that being there because they're full all the time. So they need empties. That is recyclable stuff.
So you don't have a recycling container that gets
Yeah,
picked up at
we
a
have
96 gallon at your curb?
Little recycling things.
Not little, they're big.
64.
64 gallon containers at your curb.
About that high, I got the 96 one too.
Yeah.
I drop my papers and my boxes and stuff down there. I don't jam them in the thing.
Thanks. Sorry.
Thanks.
Trustee D'Souza.
Is there anything that the drop-off site used to take that you can't put in curbside?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So you should be able to recycle everything that you used to take to a drop-off site, you can put in your curbside one.
And I believe you can get an extra recycling container if you want one also, right?
There is a charge if you want another container. The biggest issue that we had with the recycling center over behind the fire station was the disposal of non-recyclable items, mattresses, furniture, all sorts of things that were just being dumped there. That was the biggest problem, and there were numerous complaints from property owners in the immediate vicinity.
And it was the same problem we had with yard waste containers as well.
Excuse me, I think if some information was put on the top up there, what's to be done, it would help people if they understand what to do and how to do it. But when you have nothing there except recycling center, that don't help people.
Okay.
To do what they're doing, supposed to do.
Okay. I guess I just have to make, I should make one comment about the fire protection. The town doesn't run fire protection, and that's a decision of Rocky Mountain Fire Protection District, so.
The town didn't
that's-
change that.
Yeah, town's not changing anything in terms of fire protection.
But original town does have fire protection.
The original town,
Yes.
like everybody in town,
Just-
has
just
fire
wanna make
protection. Yes.
Sure that everyone.
Additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items?
Good evening, Steve Burns, 101 West William, here in the original town. I'd kind of like to agree with George about the recycling facility. It's been nice being able to have that at our use, since it is kind of a hassle for us to always drive over into Rock Creek and not sure what time frame, when it's going to be open, when it's going to be closed, even though there's a sign. I've been through there a few times and the gates have been closed where I haven't been able to get in, or some of the things that I need to throw in from my yard, I can't because you have to scale a patio to get up there, and some of the stuff is just a little too cumbersome to lift over into the bins. Louisville, they don't particularly care for us driving our mulch and our branches over into their area because they make that a service to Louisville residents only. And I've had a long discussion with the service manager over there about that, And he basically told me, well, if Superior wants to do that, we'll charge the Superior residents, or they can create their own, which I don't think is entirely a bad thing, because we do landscaping around here, and we can use up the mulch and as part of a public comment or a public service to people who want mulch, instead of having to figure out how to go get it, or allow the landscaping company that we outsource our landscaping to use that to better beautify the services, the areas that we have. One of the points I also want to bring up is about appearance in the town. I see the board sitting here nice and very attentive, watching this program on TV. The only thing that comes through is on a resounding comment when the town manager is talking is the football game that is on his monitor right now. I think that's absolutely a disrespect to the town board, because that he could glance down and be watching, not paying attention to you. He's getting paid to be here. That's a disrespect to the citizens of the town of Superior, while he gets to sit there and be paid to watch the football game. Now, I'm not saying he is, but when I'm watching TV, all I can see is the glaring and the football program being watched from his monitor. That's a shame. I don't think anybody in a regular standard business would be allowed to continue to have a job if they were being paid to do one thing and doing something blatantly different. So that's my comment.
Okay. Trustee Skumatz?
So you meant the yard waste facility? That was, you wanted, not recycling, it was yard waste you were concerned about?
Well, the recycling as well.
But when you talked about going over to Rock Creek, there's no drop-off in Rock Creek. So
That is correct.
Okay, so it was yard waste that you were talking about when you were talking about that particular topic? So you'd rather bring yard waste
No.
to Louisville than to Rock Creek? That was what I was confused about.
The recycling center behind the temporary fire, it's not really a fire station, it's more town.
The one here in Original Town?
It's not a fire station.
I understand. But you were saying
But
you're
it is
gonna-
that building. There is recycling back there. We need
Yes.
to keep that in Original Town.
But then you talked about you don't like to bring it down to Original Town, or to
I
Rock
do
Creek, and that's why I was
apologize.
confused. Okay.
There were two comments in one.
Yeah.
I apologize
Okay.
about that.
I'm not accusing, I'm just
No,
trying
I
to
know.
clarify my brain. Yeah.
Right, and that's why I'm apologizing,
Yeah.
because there was actually supposed to be two comments there
Okay.
about the recycling and about the
Yeah.
recycling program being not available all the time when we need it.
But then the yard waste one was the one I was trying to ask the question about. So your comment about yard waste was that you
We need better
you may go to
facilities for
yard
that.
to Louisville, but not to Rock Creek, and I didn't understand why you would do that.
Because it's easier to load and unload in Louisville than it is in Rock Creek, and Rock Creek is so small, the facilities are so small, they fill up so quickly.
So maybe we can look into the size issue. Okay, and I'll see how the loading is different over there. Thanks.
It's on a flat ground. You don't have to walk it into containers or anything.
Yeah, it's expensive to dig those things. Okay.
They don't dig. They just leave it right there, you dump it out, and then they come and mulch it 6 times a year.
I'll check it out. Thanks.
I suspect the town manager is able to multitask it all at once. And actually, I'm curious, what is the score?
I don't know.
Don't know. Anybody? Nobody's watching.
7-3.
7-3. Thank you very much. Additional public comment on consent agenda or non-agenda items. Trustee D'Souza.
I just wanted to check again. I did get some comments about the yard waste facility being full, and I was just wondering, has that been dumped, or, I mean?
It has been.
Okay.
We got overrun this weekend, and it happened as of late Saturday afternoon when the 3 very large roll-offs were full, and we couldn't get them removed.
Okay.
But we will be open again. This is our last week. Wednesday, 4 to 8, Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 5, with the exception of noon to 1 when it's closed. So it's 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, both Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
Next Sunday will be the last day.
Okay, so get your stuff in. And also, we do offer mulching, right? I know we offered that before. Is that the Christmas tree recycling? Then
Right.
we offer
Which will
free
be in
mulch
January.
we offer free mulch to residents, though, right? On that one?
This year, for the first time, purchased a very large quantity of mulch and had it available for residents to pick up. It didn't last more than a few weeks early in the spring, in March and April.
That was a compost. That was compost.
Yeah,
Anyway. Mulch is different. The mulch thing happens with the Christmas trees, and that's been a longer standing thing.
But the compost was, and
Very popular program.
it was $5,000 to $7,000, and it got consumed within a matter of just a few weeks.
Okay, thanks.
Just so we're on this topic, and you come from cities and towns in the Midwest where they have a whole bunch more leaves than we might not have here in the town of Superior. Do they do curbside leaf pickup in those communities?
I've had cities that actually were in the business of leaf collection, where if you raked them into your curb, the town would come and vacuum them up.
Louisville does that.
We'd also had composting facilities that over 3 or 4 years where they would decompose and then be available for mulch. Expensive propositions, take up a lot of land, and there's some other tangent issues, most notably smell of maintaining mulch piles. But yes, the other thing, and in many of the Midwestern states, there's already been state legislation that bans landscape waste from landfills. Colorado has not gone that far yet. So as a result, municipalities, private third-party vendors, many people have gotten into the business of reusing landscape wastes, whereas Colorado has not.
Trustee Skumas?
And I did in the past ask Louisville if we could, rent their truck at times when they're not using it for the vacuuming thing, but they apparently use it the entire season or something.
It's a consuming process while you're doing it.
Okay.
I'm living at the bottom of the hill. I can just imagine one wind and all the leaves are in my yard.
No, they're all in my yard. All leaves.
Everybody's. Yeah.
Additional public comment and consent agenda or non-agenda items. Seeing none, item number 6, presentations, which we don't have any this evening. Item number 7, consent agenda. On the consent agenda is acceptance of the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee meeting, approval of a liquor license renewal for the Safeway store, final approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 8 of the Superior Municipal Code, adopting a new Article 3 relating to certain electric vehicles, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Green Earth Fence Products, Inc. for fence painting and maintenance, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with CoCal Landscape Services, Inc. for landscape and snowplow services, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Quality Water Biosystems, Inc. for pond maintenance, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Swingle Lawn, Tree, and Landscape Care for Tree Care Program, and adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with the YMCA of Boulder Valley for youth sports services. I'll entertain a motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee Burris. Discussion? Trustee Skumatz?
Yeah, so I have only one small issue, and that is on, it doesn't exactly relate to I, but it's sort of the topic of I, which is the Swingle Tree landscape care for tree care program. And it's more a question for staff, just I worry about our trees and how a good chunk of them die, and it's a continuing problem and all that sort of thing. And we ask them to sort of replace the trees, and then we buy more trees and whatever. And are there places where, like, if we made them sort of guarantee the success, would they say trees should not go here? And that sort of thing. It seems to me that if trees don't live in a particular place, let's not replant them in that place. And maybe we already do that. I've never been quite clear on that. It sounded like sort of, but not exactly. And we break up the bundles better, and so that makes a difference. But it really concerns me that I keep seeing trees going into the same sorts of places and then dying yet again. And trees and medians, it's not working. And so so it's just a question of, can we look at. We probably do, but I guess I want to reiterate or reemphasize or something, looking at putting trees where they make sense and where they will ultimately thrive, not replacing trees in unthriving places.
But this is not.
I know that's not I said it was a relay. It was just
when it comes to our annual urban planting programs.
But I've brought it up before, and I just want to reiterate it. So, thank you for hearing me out on it.
Thank you very much.
Trustee
Those trees
Williams.
die over.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Williams. Yes.
And I'm just curious, question here on 7F, which is the fence painting and maintenance. I'm curious, does this include the paint on the pricing? It does include the paint. So they're responsible for buying the paint. Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Phyllis?
Sorelli?
Yes.
DeSouza?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Skumat?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. That moves us to what was 7C, preliminary approval of an ordinance annexing the Oxnard property. Trustee Skumatz.
So I understand that it's not something that we discuss a lot, but I guess what I want to find out is, we need to pass C and D to make it so we either can have thumbs up or thumbs down on this at some point. If we,
That's your preference, yes. I mean, legally, a preliminary approval of an ordinance for a statutory town is not required. You've expressed a preference in the past to have preliminary approval of ordinance.
Of all your ordinances.
Legally, no, this is not a required step. But if you're consistent with your custom of having 2 readings of ordinances, yes, you should do this evening.
but to have public hearing on this, we need to pass this ordinance. But to make everything happen, we have to pass it twice? Not trying to be
No,
dense.
legally, you have 1 reading of an ordinance. That's all you need to do, and that will occur at the time of the public hearing. Again, the board, as a custom, has expressed a preference to have 2 readings of all ordinances, despite the fact that legally you're not required to. That's what requires this extra step called preliminary approval.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that is basically to provide more information to the public. That's why we went to that step.
Sure.
And I guess I prefer to do something at this meeting and consider this preliminary approval at this meeting where there's going to be 6 people here than only at the one with 4. So I guess.
Can't do anything tonight, though.
We cannot
because
do anything
Can't
tonight.
open the public hearing because
So-
it hasn't been published.
I know, but we can do we have to do the preliminary approval in order to.
To go to the public hearing
Yeah,
at the next
public
meeting.
Well, based
Or-
on your custom, yes, you would.
And
It's not legally required.
And if we did it tonight, then that means 6 people are voting on this preliminary approval, not just 4.
Sure,
But I'd
but we
say-
can't
but-
take any testimony tonight that will
Unless-
ever be able to be on the record or considered by you in your final decision on this.
But we weren't ever, no matter.
Exactly.
Right.
That's not a change.
So if,
Trustee Williams.
I'm sorry. So if this preliminary ordinance voted down, then what?
Based on your custom, you generally don't take an ordinance if it doesn't get preliminary approval. It doesn't normally go on an agenda for final approval because that's what you've requested as a board that staff do. Legally, it could come back to you for final approval, and it would be okay. Preliminary approval is not a required step.
So it doesn't really matter whether you vote yes or no.
Well,
I mean, that's
That's more a philosophical thing. The real meat and potatoes of this particular issue comes when the public hearing is opened, which is
Exactly.
either the next meeting or the subsequent meeting.
that's the real decision. That's the decision that counts.
all right. So as I understand it, the preliminary ordinance is just basically saying, hello, I see that you're coming.
Exactly.
Okay, then.
Yep. I think that's a very accurate way of stating it.
Okay. All right. So,
Trustee Skumatz.
are there any other questions or anything?
And why don't we do C and D since they seem to go together?
Linked
So is
together.
C and D sort of the same issue for you?
Yes.
And-
I was just, I hate to have to get rebriefed on this every time, and I apologize, but
No?
it just.
It's good to understand.
We don't do it often enough that people are familiar with the process.
So
And if I'm not familiar, neither probably are residents.
absolutely.
And it's rather confusing, especially in the case of annexation. It just makes it a little more confusing.
And any other comments or questions from the board about C and D?
Okay.
Seeing none, then I'd love to have some public comment about either C or D.
I know we're George Cutman, 109 South. I think it's a shame for people to even think about passing this ordinance with Thanksgiving being the 26th of November. Plus, you're not going to have a full board here. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the other absentees. I'm talking about the general public's input on this when they have children in school, which I don't have any at the present time. Don't plan on it. Other people do.
Yes.
They're out of town for Thanksgiving. They're out of town for the holidays coming up. So let's back off. Let's don't be rushing this through, please. I own property on both sides of that annexation, And that gentleman yet has to talk to me since he's been here.
Okay, let's,
He might say hello, but that's fine.
okay, let's just talk,
So let's
stay on topic here.
just back off and give people an opportunity. That's what you're representing us for. Thank you.
Trustee Skumatz?
And I think, from what I heard from the earlier discussion, Mr. Kepner, there's a time limit from when we said we wanted to set a public hearing. We set a public hearing for a date when there weren't going to be apparently a lot of people here, which is a problem. So we earlier discovered that the process that we would use that allows for maximum input and doesn't rush a decision is that we would do this preliminary approval this meeting. Next meeting, when there's not a full house, basically, we would have the minimum amount that you're required to have for a public hearing, and then carry it over to the next meeting. So then December 14th, when there's a full board or close to a full board, and another chance for people to provide public input, that's when we would be considering the motion. So we're not trying to rush it through. In fact, it's drawing it out.
Okay.
Sure. I was confused. That's why it's pulled.
Gladys Forshey, 404 South Avenue. Well, I, have lots to say about this. And Dana, I want to say thank you for your comments earlier about clarifying it and bringing it forward and everything. If this meeting tonight, that our public comment doesn't count, then as long as I know that there is no official, legal formality, whatever you want to call it, legality, I guess is the best word, that public comment will definitely be allowed later and where it will count, then I'll save my comments because I have 18.
Okay. Yes, so the answer is
that's
yes, during the public hearing.
That we need.
Yes.
That's right.
We need that
There you
hour,
go.
so there we go.
Oh, yeah, that hour.
We need
you
an
have a whole
hour.
basically.
Yes.
I'm trying to get those 60 minutes no matter what.
We're counting on that.
Additional public comment about C or D this evening? Anything else from the board?
I'm
Trustee
sorry,
Williams?
one more. So, since I will not be here December 23rd, some of the
November,
November, I'm sorry.
I'm not here on the 23rd.
Yeah, November 23rd. And I have 3 pages of questions in here that I was hoping to ask tonight. Obviously, I'm not. Oh, I take that back. 4 pages, okay. So when would I be able to actually ask all those questions?
At a
Hearing- when the public hearing is
that you're
open.
attending.
And basically, I'm going to be asking questions, I'm sure, that are already in November 23rd will have been asked.
You can submit them to another board member and ask that board member to ask those
So I
questions.
could do that.
And
So
then
it'll be on
you
the
could
tape.
then watch
Okay.
the tape if that is, if you choose to do that, sure.
Okay. All right.
And there's, the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but you could also send that to town staff's way so
Sure.
that they would, part of the briefing memo could be addressed at that time as well, if it's
Yeah.
just kind of concrete questions.
That would be fine, too.
Trustee Gross.
Yeah, since Trustee Williams and myself will not be here on the 23rd, and obviously Trustee Rosenfeld will not be here, are the 4 of you for sure going to be here?
God willing.
Just want to make sure that...
snowstorm.
Okay.
I'll be working, so I'm here.
Okay.
So, all right. With that, I'd entertain a motion. Trustee Skumatz?
I'd like to make a motion and to move forward a preliminary approval of Town of Superior Ordinance Number O-
It wouldn't be, just, you don't need to do the ordinance number,
Thank
just
you.
the,
Series 2009, I keep reading that.
this
Yes.
that part.
An ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior annexing to the town a parcel of unincorporated property located in the county of Boulder County, commonly referred to as the Ochsner parcel, and more particularly described herein.
Motion. Okay, motion by Trustee Skumatz. We'll do them separately.
Okay.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz, second by Trustee
Tobin.
Cirilli. Discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
And I'd like to move preliminary approval of Town of Superior Ordinance Number O-blank, Series 2009, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a preliminary planned development zone district plan for Coal Creek Crossing development on certain property commonly referred to as the Oshner property in case number PPD/ZDP-2009-1.
Motion by trustee Skubma, second by trustee Sorelli. Discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, and once again, this just means that we'll be having a public hearing at the next regularly scheduled meeting, at which time a public hearing will be held for public comment and additional board questions and comments. So, anything else to come before the board tonight?
There's none.
And that comment will be in the minutes? That comment that you just made?
Hit the comment that I made? I mean, we don't usually use verbatim minutes, but if you have any don't have any concern. I mean, it's just, if that doesn't happen, then the case is not valid, and then...
happen, guess who's going
I know, so that's why I'm not concerned about it. Anything else to come before the
For
board
60
tonight?
minutes minimum.
Exactly. Counting on it.
You got to give us at least 60 minutes.
Seeing nothing else, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.